Okay, so we're up to Parshas Vayigash, Perek Mem Vav, Pasuk Ches. Ve'ele Shemois B'nei Yisrael Haboim Mitzrayim. Let's start with that. So at this point, on the way down to Mitzrayim, we have a catalog of their names and number. Now, the notion of names and number is mentioned in at least two of the parshas that we've been looking to constantly in the context of the descent to Mitzrayim. And one of them is in Yeshaya, Perek Mem Aleph. Yeshaya, Perek Mem Aleph, Pasuk. Let's start from Pasuk Chav Zayin, and then we're going to go backwards. But I meant to say Perek Mem. Shaya Perek Mem, Pasuk Mem Zayin, Pasuk Chav Zayin, Shaya 40:27. A message to Yaakov. Lama Soimer Yaakov Usidaber Yisrael Nistar Adaki Me Hashem Ume Alekai Mishpati Yavar. And Chazal say, in at least two places, in two different contexts, that this is a message to Yaakov. Yaakov is Yaakov himself, who he felt that Hashem was hidden from him. And most recently we discussed this in the context of this parsha, because the Medrash says that when Yaakov said, Rav, Od Yosef ben Ichai, he said, Yosef's power is Rav Mimeni, Rav Koichai Mimeni. Because I sinned, because I said, Nistar Adaki Me Hashem. And he is in Mitzrayim all these years and retained his tzidkus. Similarly, the Medrash says on the pasuk Lo Mahari Oisa, when Yaakov said to his brothers, Lo Mahari Oisa la'avdecha, says the Medrash, here I am making his son a king, and he's saying Lo Mahari Oisa, which means really, because what's the whole punchline of the whole Yosef story is Atem chashavtem alei v'Elokim chashav l'tova. Even things that seem evil are good because Hashem only does good, and Yaakov doesn't realize that. Yaakov thinks that there's actually evil. This is exactly what this pasuk is saying. He thinks Nistar Darki Me Hashem u'Melekei Mishpati Yavar. And also we spoke about this when he went down to Mitzrayim, he brought Zvachim and the boundary of Eretz Yisrael, and Hashem says, no, I'm going with you. As the next pasuk says, Halo yadatem lo shamata lekei olam Hashem. B'rek tzois haaretz. Yaakov didn't know that. Yaakov brought Zvachim on the boundary of Eretz Yisrael, Beersheva, because he thought he's taking leave of Hashem. And Hashem says, no, hine anochi imach. I'm sorry, hine anochi imach is in Beersheva, the first one. Here he told him, anochi erid imcha, echoing the same message. Yaakov consistently thinks he's on his way out of Eretz Yisrael. That means he's leaving Hashem, or Hashem is leaving him. And Hashem says, no. B'rek tzois haaretz. Ein cheker l'sunasa. Hashem is boundless, is infinite, and therefore he's not limited to any particular place. Okay, and so look at the pasuk prior to this one. That's Perek Mem Pasuk Chavav, and it says Su'u Morim Einechem U'u Mivara Eila Motzim Mitzvot Tzva'am L'chulam B'Shem Yikra. So look up to the sky. The stars are uncountable to humans, but Hashem could count them. Like it says, like this pasuk we have here in Yeshaya, Ein Cheker L'Smunasai. So since Hashem's tune is Ein Cheker, therefore he can count the stars that seem to us to be uncountable. And he can count them, and he can actually name them. None of them are missing. So here we have in the descent to Mitzrayim, where they're going to become Parva Yishu they're going to become Kachavim, as been promised. They are being taken out to the K'tzai Sa'aretz, and Hashem is saying, no, I'm with you there. And then on the way out, he's Moitzi them b'Mizpar and gives them all a name. Right, the two things that happen in our parsha are they all get named, and we have the number. And in Mitzrayim is where they're going to become like the Kachavim that they're destined to be. And here we have this thing of Hashem knows to count the stars and name them. And the similar in Mizmar Kuf Mem Zayin, which you just referenced. So we have the same thing. Kuf Mem Zayin, we keep on going back to in the context of our parsha. And there we have same idea. God lo nin rav koach. Let's see what does it say there. B'nei Yerushalayim Hashem nidchei Yisrael lechanes. This is referring to the reunion of Bnei Yisrael that's happening in Mitzrayim. This family that was broken up is now becoming reunited. Right for the Shuri Lev Mechabesh Atzvaisam, they're being brought back together. Moinem Ma'idin Lev Mashem Hashem Maletz. Moinem Mispar Lekachab Nchum Hashem Tzikra. God Ladin Rav Koyach Sunase in Mispar. Moidan Lev Mashem Tzedek. Okay. So when Hashem reunites Nidchei Yisrael and he heals their brokenness, in that context we have this notion of Hashem is able to count the stars. Bnei Yisrael going to enter Kechavim, and they are counted. Okay. So what's, let's say it's based on the Yeshayas, the way it's expressed in Yeshaya. The pasuk says, "Oh, Hashem is Barik Tzoyis Haaretz. Don't think He's abandoning you." And as we said, there's a Havamim that say, "Oh, you're going down to Mitzrayim, so maybe you're leaving Hashem." Chumash on the Navi, no, Hashem is not abandoning you. And I want to say that the number of Bnei Yisrael that we learn in our Parsha, which is 70, that number tells us it's not being abandoned. Here's why. Because what does it say about this number 70 in Ha'azinu? In Ha'azinu, Perek Lamed Beis, Pasuk Ches. B'hanchel elyon goyin b'afridoi b'nei Adam yatzev gevulos amim l'mispar b'nei Yisrael ki chelik Hashem amu Yaakov cheva nachlasei. So one reading of this pasuk is that the number of the nations, which is 70, go to Parshas Noach and count to 70, corresponds to the Mispar B'nai Yisrael. Okay. The Mispar B'nai Yisrael, which is eventually going to be Kekachavim, starts off as being the number of 70, which is the number of the Gvulos Amim. Why is that so interesting? Because what that tells us is that we think B'nai Yisrael are going out, they're leaving Hashem. That's one way to read Galus. Nistar Daki Me Hashem L'Kam Mishpat Yavar. Because what's that have mean? Oh, B'nai Yisrael is with Hashem. Okay, but that's only when they're in their land. They leave their land, so that's not part of Hashem's jurisdiction or whatever you want to call it. However you want to special relationship. But given that, look at this notable thing. When they're going to Galus, look what number they are. They're 70. So if the 70 Bnei Yisrael are going amongst the 70 nations, that tells us that actually the whole world is really connects back to Eretz Yisrael. So instead of looking at it as they're leaving Hashem, really they're going into Galus tells you something about Galus, which is that Galus is now becoming connected to its root, which is Bnei Yisrael. So the fact that the number is the same number as the nations tells us that there isn't an absolute disconnect between Chutz La'aretz and Eretz Yisrael, or between Yisrael v'Amim, and therefore, even though they're going into exile, doesn't mean that they're being abandoned by Hashem. Okay? So that's what Yeshaya says. So don't say Nistar Daki Hashem. Hashem counts the stars, Hashem counts them, and the number that He counts them ends up being the number of the Amim. And that tells us that the Preda, B'Afrida B'nei Adam, is not absolute. That's the medrash that we can learn from these psukim that correspond to our parsha about the Shemos and the Mispar when they're going to Galus.
Is there a significance to the names or just to the number?
So, okay, to the specific names or to the fact that they are named?
The fact that they are.
Right, so the fact that they are named, so, I mean, let's see, what it says in Yeshaya that Hashem could name them, and the same thing in Tehillim, right? The chiddush of that is that He comes up with so many names, right? Meaning, there's He can count them, and He can identify them each uniquely. So then if we're talking about a number that's 70, it's not so hard to come up with 70 names, right?
Yes, but if names are the same as the names of all the animals, according to the Midrash, everything is actually directly connected to its essence and its nature.
Okay.
He gives them their names, the names that they are. It's not a question of having enough names. It's a question of also knowing the nature.
It's a question of them being distinct from each other. But I'm saying it's like this. I'm saying there seems to be something a little bit of an incongruity here, because when it comes to stars, there's something notable about the fact that you can name them. Okay, yes, you're right. It's not about coming up with so many names, probably. It's about the fact that each one is distinct enough. You understand why each one's unique, and therefore you give each one a unique name. Okay, but when it comes to 70 people, is there a reason to think that they shouldn't have unique names? Like, is it a big deal that even 70 is
are
considered unique.
No, I think they're two different points. One of them is 70 is 70, so the thing that's a comment about what the number is to say something about the goals.
Right.
The other point is that I'm giving you names just like I give the names to the stars
Okay.
because these are real names.
Okay, but here you have to realize it doesn't say that Hashem gave them these names either.
No.
So it's that they have names. Why is it important that they have names?
It's also interesting with the pasuk in Yeshaya ends off,
Right? The person.
Person.
Right. We're talking about stars.
Yeah.
Right. So it's clearly anthropomorphizing stars, or somehow shifting from stars to people.
It's
So maybe that's the point. What?
Also a metaphor, but yeah.
What? Ish? Yeah, we say we use ish for stars.
No,
I mean,
we're saying that the stars are a metaphor.
Right. No, that's what Shmuel's pointing out. But it just shifts very smoothly back to the what it's a metaphor for. No, so maybe that's the point. Maybe Ish Neder tells us the fact that we give them names is telling us that we need every single one of them. Each one has must be there. So by count, we're not just counting them, but we're saying, okay, it's like taking attendance. It's like you have to be here, and you have to be here, and you have to be here. So it's giving a significance to each of them. And it's giving a significance to each of them on their way to exile, which is l'chayr when they're becoming insignificant, and that's where the 70 nation comes in. It's like, no. Actually, the significance of 70 is actually relevant right now when you're leaving Etzal, because you should know where you're going is the place that actually has the number of people that correspond to you. So in a certain sense, it's like now we need you really to be. Now we really need to take a roll call and make sure we have all 70 of you, because something's happening that relates to all 70. Now, I once tried to do a study. I'm very interested in the Shivim L'Shainis, as you may know, And I sat down for a long time. I'd always want to know what the Shivim L'Shainis are. What I mean by that is Shivim L'Shainis is not languages, Kiyadua. It's 70 ways of thinking. So what are the 70 ways of thinking? Okay, can we discover this from Tanakh? I worked very hard on this. And one of the ways I tried to find this is to see, okay, we have these 70 names here. We also have the 70 nations, and there's a correspondence, like the pasuk says in Hazinu. So are there any clues? If you line up this to that, let's say, let's say, for example, there's 4 groups over here. Leah, Rachel, Zilpah. And there's certain kinds of, like a certain number that appears, 10 children here, whatever. What happens if you line it up to those 70 nations? I found nothing. So, for whatever it's worth.
What's interesting is that by the 70 nations, one branch is Shem, which is
right.
Which is names.
Interesting. The notion, and you have the Lishmaisam over there also, Lishmaisam. They spread up Lishmaisam, right? Interesting. Right. So I mean, a fair question is, Yatziv Gulas Am L'Mispa B'nai Yisrael, does that mean that every one of these 70 people corresponds to a specific one? And can we know something about, can we know what that correspondence is? Can we learn something about that correspondence? Like I said, I found nothing, both in terms of the literature. I looked all over the place, and also I didn't find any clues. But I may have not looked hard enough. Also, the 70 over there is even more difficult than the 70 over here, I think, how to count it. Here it's difficult. Everyone knows the problems. It's 69, and there's about 7 or 8 different answers. But who is included in 70 over there is even more complicated. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to review the parsha, meaning from pasuk Ches through pasuk Chav Zayin, and I'll comment on some diyukim and shinuyim within the parsha and elsewhere, and we'll cover the whole thing. So this exact phrase recurs in the beginning of Parshas Shmos. The difference is that there it continues and says, Eis Yaakov ish ubeisibot, along with Yaakov. And here Yaakov is first. So I think the reason is because here Yaakov is still alive. So we're describing it as, here's the names of Bnei Yisrael, taking Bnei Yisrael to mean, let's say, the nation Bnei Yisrael, which as some people do, because it says Yaakov as well. So, okay, Yaakov is the first of the Bnei Yisrael Abba Mitzrayma. According to many, this is, I think, the basic pshat, the Pashup pshat, Yaakov is the one who's included in the 70, and Yaakov is the one who gets you from 69 to 70. We'll take you through the Cheshbon soon. So, Ve'elish Shmos Bnei Yisrael means the nation of Yisrael, Abba Mitzrayma, and the first one is Yaakov. Pashup Shmos is written from the perspective as Yaakov is already dead, so we're taking you to the next door, So we're talking about the people who came along with Yaakov. And then we say, Vayomas Yosef v'cholecha v'chol adarahu. We don't say Vayomas Yaakov, because the perspective there is that he's already dead. Now, I'm saying, really, they all, right, okay, fine. So the perspective over there is that Yaakov is dead, so therefore it says these are the ones that came along with Yaakov. Okay. So Yaakov is included. So here's how I read the pasuk. What?
Here we only name his sons. There we only name his sons. Here we name Mo.
Right. Right. So there it just names his sons and says Ishu Beisai. It's actually the opposite. I'll tell you why. Because in our parsha, it doesn't even name his sons. It says like this. Okay, fine. So it tells us something. Then it says, and the sons of Shimon were, and it's assuming we know them. Of course we know them because we've been reading about them till now. There, and then it tells us, okay, you never heard of Reuben. Let me tell you about Reuben. You remember Reuben from back in Parshas Vayetze? You've been to Chanoch and Palu and Chetzon Nechami. We've got to catch you up on the whole family. In Shmais, it's the opposite. It's like, let me tell you who came with Yaakov. Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, but Ishu Beisai. Right. So it's talking opposite that way.
It's not, in this parsha, though, it's not so consistent. First of all, it ended off by saying Ela b'nei Leah, which is not really true. You glossed over the b'nei Leah. You're telling us about b'nei Leah's children. So it's just not consistent. But then by Rachel, Taka says the names. B'nei Rachel, Ish Yaakov, Yosef, Binyamin. So it's not consistent.
B'nei Rachel, I didn't even notice that. Okay, see, that's what I was looking for. I told you I'm going to go through the parsha and notice differences. I didn't know. That's a very interesting difference. That by Rachel, it says the sons of Rachel were Yosef and Binyamin. By the other ones, it jumps and says, sons of Shimon are Azai, sons of Levi are Azai, sons of Yehuda. These are the Bnei Leah. Sons of Godim. Right.
Strange, but then by Rachel, Taka says the names.
Right, and it says Ela b'nei Rachel, and then it concludes in Pasuk Base. Right. So why does it say b'nei Rachel? Eish Yaakov Yosef Binyamin? Okay. Right. Wow. Okay, I didn't realize that. Okay. The thing is that pasuk is maybe telling us something we didn't know, which is that she's called Eshes Yaakov. It's
the children.
Right.
I'm not sure that's true.
Why it reflects on the children.
Yes.
So in the context of who are the real children, who are the most important children, yeah, could be. Okay, interesting. Good. So Bechor Yaakov Reuven. Why are we mentioning that Reuven is the Bechor? Why is that interesting? Remember, we're not introducing us to the children. We know they are Bnei Shem and Bnei Levi. So why are we telling us Bechor Yaakov Reuven? Now, there's a corresponding minyan in Divrei Yamim. Basically, we have like this. We have the minyan and the names in this parsha. We have it again in Sefer Bamidbar, and then we have it again in Divrei Yamim. And one of the things you have to do to learn these parshas is to compare those three and see the changes and darshan them, and notice them. But a big difference between the genealogy here and in Divrei Yamim. In Divrei Yamim, it's expanded beyond the darish we have here, of course. But in Divrei Yamim, it goes like this. So Divrei Yamim Aleph, Perek Dalid, goes Bnei Yehuda. That's where the Yichus of Bnei Yisrael starts. Bnei Yehuda. No. Right. Yes. Okay. Right. And then you have Bnei Yehuda there, and then it gets to David and Shlomo. And here, in Perek Dalid, okay, it goes back to Bnei Yehuda, fine, so it didn't start here. But for the purposes, I just want to point out this. Perek Dalid has, and really Perek Gimel, that was Perek Beis, I'm sorry, has Bnei Yehuda first. And then in Perek Dalid, it goes to Bnei Shimon, Nemuel, Yariv, Zerach, and Yamin, Yariv, Zerach. As I mentioned, there's some changes in the names, and people are still on that. And then Perek Hey is Bnei Ruvain. And then we get to Gad, Menashe, and Bnei Levi, Yisachar, Binyamin, Menashe, Ephraim, Asher. Okay, what? So let's look at Perek Hey. Now, so notice the order is wrong, right? Or it's different. In our Parsha, Reuven comes first. There, Yehuda and Shimon, and then it goes back to Reuven. So, says the pasuk, Perek Hey, Ubnei Reuven Bechor Yisrael, Kihu HaBechor. He was really the Bechor. Ubechal lo Yitzui, Aviv Nitna Bechorasa Bnei Yosef ben Yisrael V'lo Yisachas La Bechora. So his Bechor was given to Yosef, and whatever this V'lo Yisachas La Bechora means. Ki Yehuda Govar Ba'ech V'lo Nogid Mimenu HaBechor Yosef. So, Reuven lost all his milas. The Bechor went to Yosef, and Yehuda became the Govar and the Nogid. So I think the Radak says, or maybe even Rashi says it, that this is explaining why Reuven is not put first. why did we start with Yehuda and then do Shimon? Because Yehuda and Shimon were next to each other. And why did we then only go back to Reuven? Reuven was the Bechor. Yes, he was the Bechor, but he lost the Bechorah. And who took it? Well, Yosef took something and Yehuda took something else. So that's why it's explaining why Yehuda's first. So in our Parsha, where it's putting Reuven first, so it's explaining. Reuven Bechor Yisrael. Reuven comes first. At this point, the Bechor wasn't yet given over to Yosef, and the Malucha wasn't given to Yehuda. Maybe that happened when Yaakov told him, now it's given over. That's what it's mentioned, at least.
Why does it call him Bechar in Divrei Yamin though?
Right, so I think they're reading it like he was the Bechar, so it's like a kasha, and but he lost it. Okay, and I think, and this I'm not sure about the reading here, but you look in our parsha, so we have this list over here, and then the next parsha goes like this: Ve'es Yehuda in pasuk Chav Ches, in the same parak in Parsha Vigash, Ve'es Yehuda shalach lefanav Goshna. Now, the pasuk does not mean the following. It doesn't mean Yaakov sent Yehuda to Goshen, because that would be Vayishlach Yaakov es Yehuda to Goshen. The pasuk says, and Yehuda he sent to Goshen. That means it's a hemshech and it's a contrast. We just got finished saying, here's the number, and Reuven is the Bechar, but who did he choose to send to Goshen? To Yosef Yehuda. So that means when we're talking about the power players in the family, he passes over Reuven, and he chooses Yehuda, and he sends him to Yosef, and these are the two powers in the family. So it's the same thing that's reflected in Divrei Yom, that there's this battle for power between Reuven, who should theoretically have it, but then ultimately it goes to Yehuda and Yosef, is alluded to over here. That although Reuven is the Bechor, but Yehuda is the one who actually is the one he trusts and delegates to run things. Of course, which is referenced in the previous parts of the story where Reuven and Yehuda are constantly trying to do the same thing. Reuven unsuccessfully, Yehuda successfully, both in preventing the sale of Yosef and the killing of Yosef, and then eventually bringing down Binyamin. So that's the same theme happening over here. Reuven is still the Bechor, but Lamaisa he's slowly losing his position. The Netziv says something which I think is very original. It's whatever, it's more than that. But in terms of the number, how do you get to 70? Right, the problem if you count to 69, which I'll walk you through that soon. He says Reuben's the Bechor, so he counts as 2. That's his Eitzah, okay? But he goes even further. He says, at this point, Reuben's still the Bechor. Then once we get to Yosef in the counting, then we're like, oh, Yosef, no, he's the real Bechor. So therefore, what's his cheshbon? And I forgot why he does that. To explain the pasuk that at this point in the minyan, Reuven's the Bechor. Once if we're the perspective of Yosef Mitzrayim, Yosef is the Bechor, and therefore it shifts. Somebody reads that into this parasha, and he says just like the Ramban says that the Shvatim are always 12. Sometimes we count Levi, and sometimes we count Menashe and Ephraim. So too, there's a number of 70. There's different ways you can get there. You can count Reuven as 2. You count Yosef as 2. Okay, it's very weird to count someone as 2. I mean, you want to combine the idea that 69 could round up to 70 plus the Bechor maybe counts as 2 if you want to throw that in. Ulai. Okay. Anyways, but I just bring that in because he has the same idea that it shifts. The Bechor shifts.
That sort of undermined your argument earlier about 7 names to 70 nations.
Well, I don't know. We'll have to go back to Noach and see. Maybe there's a correspondence with that as well. Like I said, it's not.
Maybe this is rounded.
Huh?
Maybe that's also rounded.
Yeah, it's not like I said. It's not so plush. Right? It's not so plush that to count there.
Okay.
We have nations that are not nations. Like the Gemara says, the pasuk zeham in the custom zeham lehaya. Okay. All right.
Later that were nations.
Right. So I don't know.
Rome is not a nation.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's go weiter. B'nai Reuven. So here's what I want to comment. First of all, we have a lot of beautiful names over here. So we have the question of darshaning the names. First of all, the meaning of the names and also darshaning them. There are some midrashim that Tzur Hamor, Bavam Sabah, who was the Beis Yosef's grandfather-in-law, Mordechai Sefer on Chumash. He brings a medrash which we don't have anywhere else. He brings a medrash with all sorts of drushes on the names. And the way to, I think a few different avenues of looking into this would be, is there a connection between the father's name and the names of the children? Like, does Chanoich Palu Chetzon have anything to do with Ruvain? Do the names have to do with each other? And these are just avenues for thinking. I haven't found anything about this. Like, are the groups have an association with each other, either with the way they sound or with their meaning? And then another thing, and this I found, this is another interesting thing is that, okay, we have, when do we have like the Shvatim treated separately? We have in their birth, Ruvain, Rosh, and Ba'ani, Shama, okay, fine. Each of them means something. We have over here, each of them have a bunch of words associated with them, the names of their children. And we have the brachas of the Shvatim, both by Yaakov and by Moshe. So I looked for this. Do we find any parallels in the brachas that it's like operating on the names of the children? Okay, I found one which I'll share with you. Otherwise, I found nothing. Also, by the way, the names of the cities in Sefer Yeshua. These are just areas to look into. That which the first ones are the family. Maybe the names of the cities. Are the names of the cities have a shaykh to the names of their families? What?
The brother have a problem because Shimon was missing.
Right. Okay, fine. That's something to think about. And I mentioned before also there's some changes from here to Bamidbar and Tevayim. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you about the Seder and the Parsha, meaning to say let's point out like how it's structured and pointing out some shinuyim and what we can say about them. So Reuven follows the regular pattern. Sons of Reuven are such and such. Shimon follows the regular pattern, except there's this thing called the Knanis, whatever that is. Just pointing it out. I have nothing to say about it. Levi follows the regular pattern. Yehuda, not so much. First of all, 2 of his children died. And second of all, Vayiyu b'nei Peretz chetzon v'chamol. So when it comes to Yehuda, he also has grandchildren. Only 2 cases of grandchildren are Yehuda and Asher in Pasuk Yud Zayin. And there's a difference because Yehuda's grandchildren, it says Vayiyu b'nei Peretz chetzon v'chamol, and Asher's grandchildren, it says Ubnei Vriya Chaver Malkiel. Why is that? Okay, we'll get back to that soon. I just want to point that out, then we'll get back to that question. The question is, why are these the only 2 with grandchildren? Is there anything significant about that? Can we see anything? Do we notice any pattern here? And why is it here it says Vayu and there it says Ubnei Bria or such and such? Yisachar follows the usual one. Zevulun is the normal one. Okay. Leah, and then there's tacked on Dina Bitoi. Okay. And here it says Banav Ubnoisov. It doesn't say Banav Ubnoisov by Zilpa, even though there's also Serach. So that's a question. Shahara.
She's a granddaughter.
What?
She's a granddaughter.
Oh, okay. So maybe you only get, right. Okay, fine. Banav Ubnoisov, fine. Right. Sons and daughters. Good. Right. So there's the only daughter. Okay. Gad follows the usual one. Asher has 2 things unique about him. There's a sister, Serach Achaisam, also introduced in a strange way. Serach, their sister, there are bunch tells on this. And also there's grandchildren. So Yehuda has 2 things unique about him, that 2 of his children died, and he has 2 grandchildren. And Asher also has something unique, 2 things unique, which is that there's a girl and 2 grandchildren. Okay. Zilpa has 16. Oh, 1 second. Let's just mention something before. It says about Leah there were 33. If you count, it's 32. So many say Yaakov is included. Shloshim v'shalosh is including Yaakov. But actually it was only 32. And that way Zilpa has half the children of Leah. Leah had 32 and Zilpa had 16. Like Rachel had 14 and Bilhah had 7. So it's 32 to 16, 14, 7. And the pasuk says 33. That's counting Yaakov, but the children were only 32. And it's counting Yaakov because the number 70 is 33 plus 16
Well, yours also has grand.
plus 14 plus 7. No grandchildren. What?
Not yet.
No grandchildren, not yet. Okay, fine. And then Bnei Rachel, Eshes Yaakov, Yosef, and Binyamin, as Shmuel pointed out, this pasuk introduces is new because it mentions who her children were, but it also says Eshes Yaakov, and it also says in Pasuk Rabbeis Asher Yulad LeYaakov. So by calling her Eshes Yaakov and saying Yulad LeYaakov, we're associating her children uniquely with Yaakov, and this sort of undermines Bechor Yaakov Reuven, because here you're calling him the Bechor of Yaakov, but now you're saying she's the real Eshes Yaakov. So this, I think, is introducing the possibility that maybe the Bechor is going to shift from Reuven to the one who's really the Eshes Yaakov, and her children are really the ones who are Yulad Yaakov. Okay.
And the other one's a tale of this Elul Yaakov.
Yeah. Right. Vatela li Yaakov. She gave birth for Yaakov. This is Yaakov. Because she's Yaakov. She's completely tough to him. Like it's really, she's the one who should be with him. They happen to be with him. So therefore they're sort of in the way, it's like it's introducing something more than just Yaakov himself. Fine. Then where are we up to here? Did I mention something? Did I mention about Zilpah? I meant to say about Zilpah. Right, there's something interesting about Zilpah. Go back to Zilpah a second. In Pasuk Yud Ches, Batela it's Yaakov Sheish Esrei Nefesh. By the other ones it says Kol Nefesh. Kol Nefesh in Pasuk Tes Vav, and Kol Nefesh in Pasuk Chav Beis, and Kol Nefesh in Pasuk Chav Hey. Why doesn't it say Kol Nefesh in the context of the children of Zilpah? I don't know. Okay. Fine.
When it says when it talks about her birthing the children, it also is different.
Right.
It doesn't say
Yes. Right. Doesn't say Vatah. Right. Okay. So Yosef is not quite the same as everyone else because Yosef, it also mentions the name of his wife and where they were born, which may be the point that we're going to say that he wasn't the ones who descended. Only 66 descended, but it's 70 total because counting Yosef and his two children. And like I said, and maybe Yaakov too. So that's why we're speaking out that Yosef had these children in Mitzrayim. In Mitzrayim, how? Oh, because he had a Mitzri wife. Okay. There is one way to mash the number of 70. Some say that the Medrash says that Asnas was born from Dinah, and her father was Shem. And Asnas is like Onsas, because she was Anusa. Her mother was Anusa. Pigad or Belezer.
Therefore she counts.
So therefore she might be the number of the 70, right? So then that would be a reason, she's a granddaughter. So that would be a reason to say her name also. That would be a reason to mention the name of Yosef's wife because she's the 70th or whatever. She's in the count. Okay, Binyamin is the regular pattern, of course, except he has the most children. And then Rachel, fine. Asher Yulad, we commented on that. Dan is the regular pattern, and Naphtali is the regular pattern. Kol HaNefesh, Habol Yaakov and Tzama Yotzei Yireicho, not including the wives, is 66. That adds up. Plus Yosef, another 2. Altogether 70. 66 plus 2 and 1. Yosef is not 70. So many say, including Yaakov. Let me tell you some of the other Prushim. Just run through them. Famously, everyone knows Yocheved, of course. Some say Hashem is Mashal Dominion because he said, Anochi Erid Imcha. Then there's this thing, Asnaz. There's Dinah having a twin. There's Binyamin having a twin. There's Chushim being plural. B'nai Dan Chushim. Maybe that's 2. Yeah.
Maybe he's 20.
Right. Okay, good. Two kids both named Chushim or both named Chush. Okay. Something about Binyamin having a twin and or approximately 70, or we mentioned the Netziv about moving counting as 2. Okay, now let's go back to there was one thing we were about the third generation, both in Yehuda's case and in Asher's case, only 2 cases. And both of them had something else unique about them. One of them is that Yehuda's 2 children died, and the other one is that Asher has this Sarach Achoisam. And there's a difference, which is that in the case of Yehuda, it says Vayu b'nei Peretz Chatzim v'Chamul, and it says b'nei Vriya. It doesn't say Vayu b'nei Vriya.
Question: Are the children who died included in the 70?
No,
They're not.
no, because
So
the
why
pasuk says
are we mentioning them?
Mitzrayim. Right. So why are we even mentioning them? Okay. So here's what I want to say. You know why there's a third generation? Because 2 of his children died, so they had to be mashlim, replaced. Now I'll show you how they're replaced. Who should they be replaced by? dies, and he should be replaced. Who should he be replaced by? I'll tell you who he should be replaced by. Shelah, right. What happened was dies, Shelah's son. Dies, Einan
was supposed to.
Doesn't do Yibum. Shelah do Yibum, doesn't happen, right?
Right.
What would have happened if Shelah would have done Yibum? I'll tell you what would have happened. Look at Divrei Yomim, Aleph, Perek Daled. Guess what Shelah named his son? No guesses?
Air.
You need an air, right? That's right. Yeah, obviously that's where I'm going. Divrei Yom Aleph, Perek Daled, Pasuk. Found it? I have it in Pasuk of Zayin, but no, it's not that. It's not Pasuk of Zayin, so let's find it. Perek Chaf Aleph, Pasuk Chaf Aleph. Divrei Yom Aleph, Perek Daled, Pasuk Chaf Aleph. Bnei Shelah ben Yehuda Er, Avilecha. So Shelah, who always thought he's going to have a child and name him Er. Not like we know it doesn't really say that. The pasuk says Yaakov Hashem Achiv, yeah name, not named. Rashi says yeah. The Ramban says what are you talking about? Lamaisa, I think this pasuk is a raya that even though Chazal says Yaakov Hashem Achiv Nachla, it also he's supposed to name the first one for the brother, and that's why Shelah. By the way, names don't usually recur in families like this. Okay?
Well,
No.
Chatzron.
What? Yeah.
Chatzron's here twice.
Where?
Name parrots Chatzron.
Oh, and Bnei Reuven. Look at that. Right. Two chetzits. Oh, that's so cool. Okay.
you go down
Two
generations,
chetzits, right.
names that repeat a lot.
No, but the kahane maybe I don't know. The Vayamim, right? But you don't have this like Zaydis and Fetters and but Hemaisa Shelah named his son Er, and Shelah was the one who was supposed to do Yibum for Er's wife and Karshma Yisrael. So okay, so now I want to read the pasuk like this. So Er and Einan are waiting for people to replace them because they died childless. So okay, parrots had children to replace them, but Bnei parrots were Chetzon Achomel, not Er. Er was only born, or reborn. Er's Gilgal, so to speak, was only born in Divrei Yom, whatever, in Mitzrayim, later. Okay, that's the pasuk saying. So on the one hand, huh? Oh, why isn't Peretz and Zerach replace Aaron Einan? Because Yehuda. I'm saying replace. No, I was saying like this. I was saying Yehuda needs. When I said everyone have to be replaced, I didn't mean because you need to do Yibum. I meant Yehuda had Er Einan and Shelah Peretz and Zerach. So Yehuda Lemais had 5 kids, and 2 of them died. So now Yehuda has to have. So Yehuda has to come to Mitzrayim with 5. Yeah, it's a weird way to look at things, but that's what I meant. And that was replaced because he had a 3rd generation, he had grandchildren. But you should know, they who were there to replace Evaonan did not accomplish the other replacement of Evaonan being named for them. They were only Chetzon Chom. That's why it says Vayu, because it's saying those children who were replacing Evaonan, and maybe you could have expected to be called heir or not. That's how I want to read it. Now, has the parallel we have by Usher. Why? Because Usher, why does he have to have grandchildren? Because he had Sarach Achoisam. What's a girl coming in over here?
Why is that a problem?
Because everyone's supposed to have boys. He's supposed to be Yimna, Yishva, Yishvi, Bria, and another boy, like everyone else. All of a sudden, if someone's having a girl, what's Hamaisa does?
And Dina?
So Dina Bitai, that's just like... Yeah, it does seem to be something else. We know in Chazal, it's a whole different story, whatever Dina is. Right? Achayol Labas.
Your reading is good when you contrast the 2 sets of grandkids, because by parrots, it's by you, B'nai parrots.
Right.
What they were, what they ended up being.
Right.
Versus B'nai Bria.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, right, exactly. Right. By you is saying they were this, not something else. They were what? No, I was saying they were named X, and that's drawing attention to the fact that they weren't named Y.
I'm
saying
that they weren't replacing Aaron.
Okay, right. They were something else.
Right.
Here's what they were. Right. In other words, you might have thought that they would be something else, but this is what they were. Right, exactly. Yes. Okay, now let's talk about Usher a little bit.
Having a daughter means that you have to have 2 grandsons to replace or to fill in somehow. But
Okay, look, we have to go back to a question over here. I guess the question goes like this. Here's the question. Did none of them have girls?
I don't know.
Boy after boy after boy? Was it something in the water? What's going on?
Also, no.
Everyone's having boys? No girls?
I don't know.
Of course they have girls.
Right. So, but we don't care.
Of course they had other grandkids that came also. They think they were
Probably also another grandkids. Right. Right. So right. Exactly. So
these are the 7.
right. And we're saying something. Right. And then if one of them is a girl, then it's like, okay, but you have to be mashlamit or something. Right. We have to give a girl, but then you have to have 2 eniklach. Right. And then I think even what you're saying about the 70, I like what you're saying. It's like, I think maybe in that sense you could say everyone and also from the 70, but they're not there. So they have to, right. That's what they counted. It's not that they count. So you ask them why they count if they died. So we said, okay, because we're going to talk about the replacement, but it's much deeper than that. It's like, you want to know what the 70 are? The 70 are everyone who are dead, but don't worry, there's another 2 to take the place. And Sarah, who's one of the 70, but she's a girl. Could a girl be one of the 70? The 70 is mostly boys, came out all boys. Okay, there's the hashlam of Heber and Malkiel.
They're part of the 70 themselves. They're not replacing her. They're filling in their own spots.
But they're next generations. They have something significant, maybe.
Torah tries to hide this by distracting you with the 69. Everyone can
Right.
see the 69. In the meantime, there's like 75 names.
Right. What I did was, I said, what if I just read this, count the names? 82 or 81. Because we have Yisrael, okay, they're Yisrael. And then you could technically Mitzrayim, I think I even missed that one, but Mitzrayim is also a name of a person. Yaakov, Reuven, of course. And then there's the Canaanis. And then there's Canaan, right? Canaan, Beretz Canaan. Erva Oinon, of course, right? You count them as well. And Poitifera and Asnas. Anyways, and that's I think it was 81 or 82. If you count every single name. But like I said, there may be something interesting about that, especially given that the parallel parsha is also, until it turns into 70s, not so parsha.
If you didn't have Dina Bitai, there would have been two more sons.
I don't know. So I'm saying something like this. I don't know. Some ranking goes like this. Since we started this year, about the 70 people going down to time are significant, right? So everyone has a role. They each have a shame, right? And they each have significant in terms of galus. Dina Bitai could count because she's Dina Bitai, so that's good. And by the way, that made me what the Bitai.
According to the measure, she was supposed to be one of the Shvatim.
Yeah. It could be the Bitai is also giving her that stempel of like she's good. Right. She's like, oh yeah, don't you have a sister? Yeah. She's in the kitchen, whatever. What?
She's clearly being counted.
Right, but she's been counted, but like an agavdik away.
Right, as a sister to her brother, not
Right, which is why the Ramban says she was a stepsister. The Ramban says has a whole chiddush that she wasn't Usher's daughter. She was She was his wife's daughter.
Then how does that count?
So it's an ask as a count. So, but maybe it could count kacha. What's the big deal? No. Someone asked that kasha, but I don't know. So it counts. But I think it counts. But we need something to beef up this family a little bit because here they're standing for the 70. Meanwhile, they have this half, agavdik sister, maybe a stepsister. But they also have these two. They come with eniklach too. And I think I'm with Shmuel that I don't know if the pasuk is saying none of them were born yet. The kids were born. They didn't have names. No one even remembered their names. These are eniklach that Yaakov knew their names. The other one he was like, well, what's that one? The one with the red hair.
They counted.
Right, they counted. It's the same thing. Right, exactly. There's a counting over here. It doesn't just mean, it's not Stama family genealogy. It's saying something important about this. Ishlay Nedar, whatever. The other ones were Nedar, the kids. The others were Nedar. Okay, a lot of Nedarim.
Well, no, I'll say Machayim Yifaru B'Nachal.
Yeah, exactly. That's not.
Yeah.
Meaning come or go.
Two sons?
Meaning come or go. Right.
No.
Right.
Clearly, he had other sons, but they're included with their brothers. They're not brothers.
Yeah, but does that right? No, we have to see if there's actually a steer though, because maybe they're born later. I'm saying that. Can you show a kasha like, oh, they were alive now? Maybe they weren't alive now. Someone speaks that. Maybe Yaakov had other sons. Maybe they were after this.
Okay.
But most people would say, yeah, at this point only 2 were born because that's what the pasuk says, right?
Okay.
I think it's significant that the context of this conversation that it's Ve'ila Shemais B'nai Yisrael. It's not Ve'ila B'nai Yisrael. This is not a census.
Oh, very good.
Names. Oh, there you go.
Excellent. So you're saying that
significant,
very good.
Foundational.
Right, very good. Very good. So then if we're trying to give names and then some of them are iffy because they died or because they're just agav, then it makes sense that there's going to be a support that don't miss her. Exactly. Or don't think you could just miss. Let's put it this way. And I'm going to actually make this clear in the context of Asher, but I'll make it clear in a moment. But it means like this. Sarah counts as a name, even though she was Sarah HaChoysim. Why? You come out, don't notice her. No, but you know what's going on over there. They also have there's 2 other kids coming along. This is a whole group. It's a chashuv group. You can't just ignore them. And therefore she's chashuv. That's part of that group. And now I'll explain to you even the context of Asher even more.
According to the Joshua, she's significant in other ways.
Right. But now let's talk about this. I mentioned before, one of the interesting thing in this Ayataka looked at was to see the names of the Shvatim and the Brachis and the names of the kids, any parallel. Here there's one. Okay. She called him Usher, Be'ashri Ki'ishruni Banais. And look, he has a daughter. Hmm. And the bracha to Usher was Baruch Mibanim Usher. All right? And he ritzoi Echav. So Be'ashri Ki'ishruni Banais. And there's a girl, and the bracha is Baruch Mibanim Usher. Yiritzoi Echav, and there's a Serach Achoi Sam. So what's going on over here? So I just want to suggest, Rashi says on that pasuk, Yiritzoi Echav, that Usher had beautiful daughters, and therefore his brothers were ratzoi to him because they had beautiful daughters, and they would marry them. So then, Ba'ashri Keshuni Banais, really, and it's Baruch Mibanim Usher. Because you know what? Usher has good banais, but the fact that he has good banais makes him Ritzui Echav. So this is Sarach Achoi Sam. She's a girl, but the significance is that she has brothers, meaning to say that she added value, or she was special because of what she meant to men, because really the bracha to Usher is what women aren't to men. Baruch Mibanim Usher, but Ishuni banais. And therefore, the fact that there's Sarach Achoi Sam tells us that there's going to be grandchildren, because that the whole Maila is Ritzui Echav, and those the grandchildren are Hever and Malkiel. And I would suggest further, Yi Ritzui Echav b'Tovel b'Shem and Ragloi, and then Me'asher Shemein Alach Me'Buyetin Madane Melech. So Melech is like Malkiel, and Ritzui Echav is a Chaver, friend. So this is, right, Ritzui Echav, he's friendly. There's people like him. So this is the one place where I find this parallels to the brachas. Right? And just that brings out the point that Sarach Achoi Sam is a way of de-emphasizing her, but then we re-emphasize her by saying, okay, but there's another generation. And given the fact that the bracha of Usher is about banim, but the banis are important because you don't have banim if you don't have banim if you don't have banis that people want to marry. So therefore, Sarach Achoi Sam as being the pasuk stressing she's not insignificant because there's another set of kids in the next generation. It's actually the parallels the whole idea that the bracha of Usher is about banis because they bring to further banim. So don't think she's not significant. Okay, that's that, and that brings us to Pasuk Kafches. A lot of psukim. Names. Oh, by the way, in terms of the nations, yeah, in terms of like how do you count the 70 here and how do you count the 70 nations, you could theoretically say, if you really want to have a complicated shtickle, is that the Torah is keeping it open how you count the 70 Bnei Yisrael, because we'll see what happens with the nations. No, so they're both shayas. It all depends.
So you give you all the names and
Right, the correspondence. Right, maybe there's a bunch of maybe there's an optionality over here.
maybe.
Because the fate of the nations wasn't chosen yet either. Yeah,
Nations is unknown, or
not at that time. There's free will. There may be a few different paths that they can